Over 50% of Black Americans are unmarried, and only 2% of Black families in America have a net worth over $1 million.
We are on our journey to not only join that 2%, but grow that 2%.
Facts. I'm Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, with my beautiful co-host.
I'm Sinclair, aka the health nerd.
And welcome to the M4 Show. We are live. Welcome back to another beautiful episode of the Melanated Married Millionaires in the making. Y'all are making history today with us.
Yes.
We greatly appreciate y'all. First off, thank you for welcoming us into your home. This is our first home interview, our first multi-generational, technically 3 generations in one household. So the Wallace family, we greatly appreciate y'all for opening up your home. Right. Before we get into it, can we please do some just introductions? Let folks know who you are, who you be, who you represent on the mic today. I see you're locked in, young prince. We can start with you, brother Sammy, if you're ready and prepared.
I don't know what the question is.
What is your name?
Sammy Wallace III.
The third. Thank you. Who's the second?
Well, I'm Sammy Wallace II.
And I'm Alex Wallace. The first.
The first. The first. One and only.
I know, but
one and only. And Queen, who are you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sinclair, aka the health nerd. Just happy to be here.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited to. We've been chit chatting and having a great time, but I'm excited to get to these nuggets and bring y'all into the conversation today. 100%.
So I want to start off, if we can, with some love stories. Oh, I'm Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, humble husband of this amazing queen right here. And I want to learn a little bit about y'all love story. We talked about that first 4-hour long date. If y'all can take us back into a time machine and what city y'all met in, how y'all met, and how that first date went.
You want to tell the story?
Oh, sure. So we met here in Oklahoma City. We were at the same church together. And so I was leaving out of the church on my cell phone. I don't know why, but I was. And he opened the door for me. And then he opened the door for me. And he followed me to my car. Not in a stalker way.
Yeah. Thank you for the context.
Right. Not in a stalker way, just, hey, who are you? I don't believe we had ever seen each other before, even though Oklahoma City is pretty small. So we went out on a date. It was a 4-hour long date. We shut down the restaurant. And
That's a sign of a good date.
We have had our foot on the gas pedal ever since our first date.
It was 10 years ago and it's still going strong.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. What I know in the beginning, you were like, as soon as we sat down, we started talking, I just knew. What were those signs?
So it was easy, right? So a lot of times you sit down with somebody, there's this awkward silence. You're trying to figure out what questions to ask. How do you engage? And it was just easy, right?
Yeah.
It was probably 45 minutes before we even ordered our food because we were in this deep conversation. And like she said, we started drinking sake and started, connecting. And before we knew it, the restaurant was closed. And the whole staff was sitting at the bar looking at us, waiting on us to leave.
So
are you leaving?
Right.
So yeah, it was the best date I ever had.
And I knew immediately. I knew immediately when he walked in late with his flowers. I knew immediately that even before we really had a conversation, we had briefly spoken on the phone, but even before our long 4-hour date, I was like, this is it. This is the one.
All right. So some game. All right. Did he have game in the beginning? Is there a particular line, a particular moment? It could have been the flowers that is in your head. Like, okay, I see you, brother.
No, but I think that's why I was like, wow, because he was so genuine. He was purposeful in everything that he was doing and everything that he was saying. And he was so genuine in his approach in our conversation that none of it felt like kind of like game or none of it felt contrived or anything. It just all felt natural and genuine.
Look at him. He's like, hold on. I had something.
It was all game.
I guess I didn't realize it was all game.
So I think it's called a sapiosexual.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's attracted to intelligence,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I may have, stretched a little bit on what books I was reading. I might have Googled some stuff and then perpetrated it as my own original thoughts. Kind of, reel around.
I believe Walter Emerson said.
All right.
And he had me a library card. He had a library card.
Ah.
And I was just thinking,
Did you look at the issue date on the
I
library?
did not. I should have.
It was the day before.
I was so impressed by the fact that he had a that just impressed me. I don't know why. It just was so important to me. The fact that he had a library card. It just blew my mind.
So that was one of our early dates, actually. We went down to a hot dog stand downtown, Coney Island, and then walked downtown, went to a library, checked out some books. Yeah. I checked out a LSAT book.
Okay.
Because I was going to grad school. I didn't go to grad school.
So I guess it was game, but I didn't know it. I just now learned it.
Yeah, I had a very sharp game as well. Quinn, go ahead and tell a story. Go ahead.
This is when I knew like this is gonna go somewhere.
Top tier, Sammy. Watch this.
So we sit down, and he from the beginning was like Mr. Game, like I'm gonna try. And our backstory is that I did have a boyfriend coming into college, but he was like, yeah, that's nice, that's cool, but you can be my girlfriend type of thing. I was like, okay, talking big game, all right. But then we went on our first official date, and I remember sitting, I think we just ordered or something like that. And so he goes, so you like chocolate? And I was like, no, not really. And his face just went blank. And he was just like, I didn't really have a backup plan for, he's like, most people like chocolate. I didn't really have a backup plan. I just started dying laughing. I was like, the fact that he didn't try to come up with something else, and his face was just like, I didn't prepare for this. Like, I didn't know you didn't like chocolate, but he was also like, I don't really like chocolate either. And I was like, well, we work, but I was laughing so hard. That was like the perfect start to our date, in my opinion, because it was you tried so hard with the game, and it didn't work, but it worked perfectly the way it was supposed to.
Exactly.
So what's the game though? So say if she says yes to chocolate, what was
That's a good question. I never asked.
Man, I don't know if I ever got that far in the game. I think going into high school, middle school, terrified of girls, right? Didn't even try, right? So going into college, I was like, I'm gonna go with some confidence. I'm gonna give some game. I watched Hitch going in. I was like, I got it. I got all the secrets. I watched Hitch like 3-4 times. I know the game. Will Smith laid it down for me. So I just had extreme confidence in it. So I don't know if I would have had a come up if she would have said, yeah, I like chocolate. I would have the same thing.
You didn't go that far ahead.
Now what? I don't know. Yes, I was just literally just trying to be genuine, authentic in it, and it worked out.
I think that's what was cool, is that I realized that was him. Like that is him. Like it wasn't him trying. Like that was just him, and that's when I fell in love with it. I was just like, this is funny. He's gonna make me laugh. That was very much a microcosm for, I think, our relationship.
That's a fact.
Oh, that's good.
You don't like chocolate?
I don't. You like chocolate?
Yes.
What's your favorite chocolate bar?
Milky Way.
A Milky Way? Okay, not bad. I used to Three Musketeers a little bit, but I would literally peel off the chocolate and then just eat the thing that was in the middle.
Nougat, yeah.
Snickers was mine. Good. You like Snickers?
No, they have peanuts.
Oh, you can't eat peanuts?
I can, but I don't like nuts in my chocolate.
I understand. I understand.
Man. So I think we had some early wealth conversations, family conversations. Did y'all have any those in the beginning stages, right? Maybe date 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and started talking about what does the future look like? What's your vision for each other?
So one of the things she was doing before I even met her was rehabbing houses and flipping houses in Wichita. So she actually brought that game to our relationship. Nice. And I just sunk my teeth into it.
Okay. And this was, you were how old?
So when I bought my first house at 22.
Wow.
Right out of college. It was a drug house. It was for auction, the city. And my mom and I got it for $4,000.
Wow.
In 2002. And then I think we put like 20 in it. And we literally were in there picking up, needles and dirty diapers. Just we were doing all the cleaning and everything ourselves. And we were doing well until 2008 hit. And then, but we still held on to a couple, but more than
couple
houses.
So let's rewind. You bought first house with your mom, 4,000.
For 4,000.
And then when one of these other couple
So
houses
we probably overall between 2001 to 2008, we probably purchased about 7.
Wow.
In that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And 2008 was really bad for us, but it was good for the knowledge and the experience that I gained.
Mm-hmm.
So while we held on to a couple of them, what I walked away from was an extreme knowledge and understanding of how it works and what to do, and able to move that forward in our business.
I definitely want to circle back to real estate in a second. 7, and that was before y'all even met, right?
Mm-hmm. This before I was 30, so from age 22 to 30. Wow. I think we purchased and sold about. We flipped them, so purchased and sold about 7.
Love that. So
and you said,
go ahead, Queen.
You said you did that with your mom.
My mom and I, we started a business called Moda Enterprises, mother and daughter, MODA.
I love that.
Come on.
So you already had that family business in your bones, like
yes,
I love that.
Right.
We did, and I, we had a great time at it. It afforded me to be able to, travel and to do some things that I love and not work a traditional job. It was years before I actually worked a traditional, like sit down at a desk job. Yeah. Because
how'd it feel?
You know what I liked about a traditional sit at the desk job is coworkers. I like that teamwork, that camaraderie that I was able to experience. And even with his book signings, part of the people that came to the book signings were my old coworkers because we had a relationship and we were able to build that, over the years. And I value that relationship and the different perspective that other professionals have in their area of expertise that I'm able to say, hey, what about this? What about that? Sometimes when you're in a business by yourself, you're in an island, you're trying to figure out, especially back then, the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And the networking and, social aspects. It wasn't like that back then. So being able to connect with other professionals who are experts in their field and being able to, to grow from that, that's a valuable experience for me also. So really every experience I feel like I've had has been a very valuable experience leading up to this. And then as we grow and develop more valuable experiences, meeting you guys is a valuable experience, learning about what you do and learning about, your game and your company has been a valuable experience that we can learn from and walk away with something from that.
So it seems like real estate business picked up from your mom, values, and there's experiences and business acumen that you're now passing on to your own kids.
Yes.
So can you talk about like some of those things? And if you have, Sammy, anything that your parents have taught you about business, about entrepreneurship that you want to highlight, but anything that y'all have in particular, you really want to make sure you're passing down to the next generation?
So I think money management is a big one. In some of those discussions we've had around, so while he's selling the book, as the royalties come in, we've had to sit down and explain to him the difference between true profit and recouping your initial investment. And even when you do have profit, we've had to talk to him about setting some of that aside so that we have money for the next project, right? We can't just go out and buy a bunch of Milky Ways. So that's something that we've had to learn. And then as we buy these houses, right? We just finished rehabbing a house in Northeast Oklahoma City. And he was there with us, right? Helping us paint, helping us get the floors ready, helping us with the kitchen. So teaching him about that sweat equity, right? You don't always have to throw a bag at it, right? But if you put your hard-earned money into it, you can recoup from that as well.
Love that. And you put your hard-earned money and sweat equity into I Slept in My Bed Last Night. Whose book is this? It's yours and whose? Say the names for the people who are listening.
Trey and Gigi.
It is Trey and Gigi.
JG.
Their nicknames is Sammy and Julia. That's their nicknames.
This is Sammy the third.
Trey.
And then this is Julia Gwendolyn. JG.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. And y'all did that book together, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, she just played, but she's in the book.
She's in the book. What's her character in the book? Monsters. Okay. And what do you hope when people read this book, right? What do you want them to learn? What do you want them to take away from the words that you written?
Be brave and stop sleeping in your parents' bed.
So did that message come from y'all? Were y'all like, oh yeah, you need to go ahead and get out this bed now, write this book?
So tell them the story about how you transitioned out of our bed into your own bed.
Just a second. 2 years later, I was sleeping in your guys' bed because some type of bug was behind my painting.
Mm.
So I slept in my parents' bed for 2 years. Well, 1 year at the apartment. And then we moved to a house. And 1 year later, my mom took it out and worked on it and made a real book.
Mm.
Oh, okay. So when we were living in the apartment, we just had Julia,
JG.
we just had JG the baby, and there was a spider behind a picture one time in his room, and he got so spooked that he was like, "I'm never sleeping in there again. Let's just like get rid of the whole apartment."
It's not safe in there.
Right.
We start transitioning him to his bed, and that just like completely reversed any work that we had done. And so he came back, but then she was born. And we just could not all fit in the bed. And so he had a perfectly nice room. We're like, just go sleep in there. And then what he was saying when we moved to the house, we put the prototype. My mom helped him with rhyming words. She was a teacher. Mm-hmm. And so during COVID happened and shut the schools down. You guys live in LA. Everything was shut down. Yeah. The schools were shut down. So she would come over and help because we were both working full time. And they were working on rhyming words. And he came up with this story. It was written on about 6 sheets of folded paper, computer paper. Mm-hmm. And she gave it to us. And we thought it was really good. And we looked at it and thought, wow, did you write this? I was saying to my mom, did you write this for him? She said, no. Like he came up with the words. We worked on rhyming words. He came up with it. So we thought, well, this is good. That's great. So we put it in the safe and we moved. And then when we moved to our house, what he was saying is that we pulled it back out. Said, okay, it's time. Let's do something with it.
So I want to reiterate a little bit. The world shut down. We're in a small apartment in Sherman Oaks. I'm working on Zoom on his race car bed, right, every day. She's at work, but she's on Zoom too with the 3-month-old on her back, right, at the kitchen counter trying to work. And then we have a preschooler who is just losing his mind because we can't go out, we can't do anything, right? So Miss Gwen, Dr. Mukes was really our saving grace. She came over and she created like Gigi's school or whatever we called it back in the day. So yeah, they would work on rhyming words, but they would also Grandma Gwen's teacher school. So it was rhyming words, but it was also math, right? It was also history lessons. It was also science lessons. And this just happens to be the product of one of those lessons, you know.
Love it. And it's also a product of literally 3 generations, right? We got your mom in there. We got y'all. We got JG and Trey on it. So I love the fact that the whole family is kind of behind this project, behind the dreams and the skills of the third right here. How does that feel to feel your family has your back and supports your dreams?
Feels good.
Feels good.
Because I know that they have I don't know specifically how much, but a lot of money. So I get them fired.
We do not have
I don't know exactly how much, but I know it's a lot of money.
I have a lot of money.
It's all relative.
It's all relative. Relativity right to what he has.
I want to buy Milky Ways.
Yes. Buy Milky Ways?
I hear you. I hear you. Mm-hmm. How did you feel when the first person read your book? How does it feel to know so many people, so many kids have read your book? And maybe you've helped them get into their own beds.
Right.
Yeah, probably did.
It probably did. How does that feel?
Good.
Good?
Good for the parents.
Good. You're helping the parents, right?
Yeah. All right. So one last question for you. What books next? You got any do you want to publish more books in the future is the question.
Yes.
Yes. You got to talk to your coach, talk to your agent. That was a good one. That was a good one. All right. Next one. How hungry are you right now?
Pretty hungry.
Pretty hungry? What's for lunch?
For pizza.
What's for lunch?
I don't know. We'll have to see when we get done where we're going to go.
Del Ranchos.
Del Ranchos?
Daddy said Del Ranchos.
You would want Del Ranchos.
Del Ranchos. Okay.
Del Ranchos.
Del Ranchos it is.
So can you talk through a little bit the steps? We talked about your MVP, minimum viable product, kind of being the computer paper and writing it down. But for other people that either want to publish their own book or for maybe other kids that want to publish their book, what are some of those steps that you need to just make sure you're taking to get it out there into the universe?
So divide and conquer, right? Mm-hmm. So we each have our skills. So I'll talk about what I did and you talk about what you did. So for me, it was important to make sure all of it was copywritten.
And what's a copyright for folks that don't know?
We did the copyright to make sure that nobody can steal our product, right? To make sure that when we submitted this was an original. And if we see anything else that says I slept in my bed last night down the road, you might be able to do it, but I need a little chunk of whatever you make.
Right.
So we copyrighted it. This is unique. And then we also have our own ISBN, right? To make sure that this is not only professional, but we can track it. You can go look at this ISBN now. You can see who the author is, who the illustrator is, and all of that. So I kind of did that side of it. And then she did all the creative stuff.
So one question about the ISBN is I know when you go on like KDP, right? Kindle Direct Publishing on Amazon will give you a free, whatever they call their KPN or something like that. They'll give you a number or you can purchase your own number. So for anyone making the decision on should I just use the Amazon barcode versus buying my own barcode, what would be your advice on that?
So you don't want to ever get into a conflict about ownership, right? And when you look at the price, just for our future projects, we ended up buying 10 ISBNs and it was like $150, right? So now we own those, not only for this book, for our future projects. I'm not sure how KDP works.
And you don't want to find out.
I don't want to find out.
So I do know. So with KDP, when you get their ISBN, they are essentially publishing it for you. So they own your ISBN and you cannot take it somewhere else. So if you want to then go print through Ingram Spark or through any other distributor, which you want to get it out in distribution, you cannot without creating your own ISBN. They own it. And so what it does is when you go through Amazon's process and use their ISBN, it takes a bit of that out of your control. Now, if you're saying, you know what, I'm short on money and I want to get this out, I want to get this published through Amazon. I don't have the funds right now, or my publisher isn't giving me the funds right now or providing me an ISBN right now to do that, then yes, by all means. Like I'm not knocking anyone who wants to use the KDP ISBN. However, it's limiting you for further distribution. We have this thing about control where we want to be in control.
Ownership.
Yes, we want ownership. We want control of our products. And so for us, it's really important that we have our own ISBN so that we own it and we're in control of it and no one else is in control of it except for us.
Yes.
And whether it's an ISBN or a home or a business, once we control it 100%, that gives us the ability to pass it down to our kids without having to worry about anything else.
Yeah. I love that art thinking. Right. Huge message. You want to go ahead, tap on it, Queen.
No, I think it's so part of what we hope that folks get when they play our game is that concept of ownership. Right. So as you go around, you land on something, you can either use it as a customer or you can go ahead and buy it and own it as a business. And we love to see even, young children, they play it, they land on the same thing 4 times and they're like, dang, I should just own this. Like we see like the light bulbs go off. And so it's so important. And so I'm sure we both love that you all that you all emphasize the concept of ownership. And for that reason that you said, like to be able to pass it down, you can't pass down anything that's not yours. Right. So even something, right. A children's book, I think some folks, everybody's written a children's book at some point, right? So it's really like
not everybody. It's a chosen few. You know what I'm talking about? Chosen few. Go on, hit me now.
Not to the level of this. No, this is a masterpiece. But I think it's important to have that concept of ownership with anything, right? So that you can have things to pass down to the young ones.
Oh yeah, love that. And then I know you played another particular very powerful role in the book as well.
Yeah, so I am the illustrator of the book. And for me, it's a brand new journey for me. I've always been in the area of creativity. Was more like corporate creativity. So, some marketing things for websites or things like that, but never I'm a full blown like illustrating a book. But after I quit my job, then that was the goal, is that my husband bought me a Mac and he bought me the programs I needed and said, go for it. And then I didn't have any more excuses, right? Like I had all my excuses were removed. And he was like, just go illustrate it. And I really am thinking, I don't know how really. Like I'm creative and I know how to do some artistic elements. But I don't actually really know how to illustrate a children's book. But when I got into it, then I was like, oh, I do know how to illustrate a children's book. And it was an amazing process for me for that creative aspect. Because sometimes when you're working for a nonprofit or company, you get locked in and there's some things that you want to do. And you can't necessarily do it. So to have that freedom to literally whatever my mind was thinking on it, to be able to do it was an awesome experience for me and something that I look forward to growing. Yeah,
and you kind of sped past that, but you said in 2020, what happened?
I quit my job.
Yeah.
I quit my job.
Come on.
Thank you.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
So you quit your job, and illustration, was that something that was kind of on your mind, on your heart even before the book, or did the book, like, was that a new passion or journey for you completely?
It was new. So he had the book and we're thinking, well, we need illustrations. And then everyone just kind of looked at me and was like, well, you're up. He did his part. Right. Like, you're up. So it was something that was new. Like I said, not the artistic side of it, but just kind of putting together as far as an illustrated platform was something that was definitely new for me. But it was on our list. When I quit my job, we had a list of things that I was going to be doing. And so this was on that list of things I was going to be doing. It just intimidated me at first. It really did. I'm not going to lie. It just completely intimidated me at first of how, because I'm not trained in art. You know, I didn't go to a class. I didn't get my bachelor's in art. I hadn't been working in that traditional artist setting. So it just really was an intimidating process in the beginning. I'd taken a class in Adobe 20 years ago. When you couldn't do anything in Adobe. I took a class 20 years ago. And so just trying to reteach myself how to use the programs and what to do was a journey, but it was just by far a really enjoyable, it was enjoyable for me.
And it wasn't a blank slate. Like her undergrad is in journalism.
Okay.
So she understands how to put the words together. She understands how to engage the press, how to get a press release out. So she didn't come as a blank slate.
Gotcha.
She just needed a little slap, a
little push.
Yeah, just a little push to kind of, get her.
Push me all, every day. Took me to the edge of the cliff and was like, now. I was like, I know. But I got wings.
But then once you turn that passion on, you don't ever want to dampen somebody's passion. But we got to a 3-week stretch where, we was eating out every night. We ain't really washing clothes. We ain't really washing dishes because she was so
hustle mode.
Hustle mode. Yeah. So laser focused.
Yeah.
And we banded together so she can get it out.
Love it.
And then this is what happened.
Love the family collaboration. And I also love, and like another message that you said is that it intimidated you at first. You didn't really know what you were doing, but you did it anyways, right? You just got started. And then I'm sure the pieces kind of started coming together. Maybe you started building that confidence. And you got to your point where, you were laser focused. You're in it. You are locked in and you got it done. So I think that's also important for folks out there. If you're like, man, I want to do something similar, but I don't have my degree in this, or I don't know what I'm doing. It's important, I think, to just take that first step. And then sometimes the other steps start to become a little bit more clear once you're a little bit closer, right, to that goal.
And one thing we did is they have a bunch of books. We have so many books. We have books here. We have books everywhere. I took out almost all of their children's books and put them on the ground and picked out which ones I did not like the illustrations of. Because sometimes you don't pay attention until you are in it.
Yeah. Right.
So I picked out what I didn't want to do. Right. So this is what I don't want to do. And then ones that I really, really liked. And he helped me with that. And we talked about what aspects of certain illustrations we liked and how we wanted it to look. So that was a process that we worked on together of just trying to figure out what do we want it to look like, what do we not want it to look like, and going towards that goal.
And there's this term out there that we both subscribe to. It's called paralysis by analysis, right? Where you look at it and you measure it and you double check and you triple check and you never jump. So we get comfortable enough and then you jump in the water.
You can always improve it later.
Just jump in.
Yeah.
Fine.
So a question for you, Trey. I know your sister helped you out a little bit, maybe not on this book, but on future books with doing some illustrations and some paintings. Can you talk a little bit about what your sister adds to your artistic genius?
She adds for me to not really do perfect art.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Example, when I'm trying to do a perfect apple, Daisy doesn't really do all the colors right. And that helps me like get more artistic.
Nice. Because it's not about being perfect?
Yeah.
No.
That was a
good.
bar.
That's a real bar.
That was a bar. That's a life lesson.
Nice. All right.
And the good news is he's going to be illustrating in his next book. He's going to be doing some of the illustrations in the next book. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah. So you've been practicing? Not yet?
He's like, it's in me. I don't need to practice. I just turn it on.
Got it. So it's self-publishing. We did MVP, just write your draft, right? Step 2, maybe buy your ISBN number from somewhere, find your publisher who can get you your ISBN number. Step 3, write the book, finish it, edit it, make sure the rhyme scheme is tight, right, Trey? Rhyme scheme's good, Dr. Gwen. Okay. Illustrations. What's after that?
So we sent it out for like test market. So I had a group of people that I trust to give me, good feedback, not just say, sometimes, people are like, oh, it's good. That's not what I want. I need to know what about this we need to change or improve. So what was really good about this book is I sent it to, I think, about 5 people for testing, for them to read to their kids, let us know the parts that resonated with them. And I got some really good feedback, especially from one of our testers, because there was an original line in the book that said fight. And she said, listen, you need to be really careful about that word because you have a young Black son. And we do not want to portray any type of violence at all. It's not a violent book. It's not a violent book. We just had that one thing, how do you fight a monster? And so we had to change it from fight to stop. How do you stop a monster? And I appreciated that feedback that I received because I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, it's this monster and he has to try to fight the monster. Even though he doesn't, but I appreciated that feedback and it really helped us to look at the whole book and just make sure that it was completely politically correct, regarding a 7-year-old Black boy.
Right.
Yes.
I know he's been on several news interviews and doing read-alongs, right? So how do you get those things, right? You talk about doing press releases as your journalism background. So if someone's trying to get their young one or their own book out into press, what's a good strategy for them to use?
So yes, we do a lot of marketing material. So which is what I do. So we do a lot of marketing material. He is my expert proofreader. So I'm really good at marketing design, but sometimes the grammar, the spelling is my strong suit. We know our strengths, right? So that's his strength. He's really, really good at that. So just creating, we have different marketing materials that we use depending on who we are marketing to or who we are reaching out to. And then the press releases, we use an agency that's through our publisher to get out the press releases. But we really try to do our end of marketing. And we are able-bodied parents that are, luckily we're able to do that. If someone needs a new flyer, we're able to just whip up a flyer and send to them. So for any parent that's wanting to go that route where they're doing it themselves, I would definitely say creating some of those pieces ahead of time, because when the train is going, it's gone and people want stuff immediately, or they need a flyer, or they need a statement, or they need a press release. Being able to have those that you can tailor to different agencies.
Nice. For you, Trey, how's been the doing your in-person readings or even your news interviews? How are you feeling on camera these days?
Good.
Feeling good? Yeah. So talking to that mic for me. Say, feeling good?
Feeling good.
Feeling great.
Yeah.
There you go.
Go ahead, Queen.
I was just gonna say, he was saying earlier, he was like, this mic. And so for a person like me, I still get sometimes nervous in front of, this podcast helps me get a little bit more comfortable, but I was so nervous when we first started this podcast. So you are years ahead of me, the comfortability, right? He was like, this mic is a toy, right? Yep. He's like, this ain't nothing. So I look forward to seeing you get older and how comfortable you're going to be in front of the camera and all of the speeches and speaking engagements and all of that, whatever you want to do in your future. I look forward to it.
What was if we are allowed to use it, I don't know if it's copyrighted by you yet, right? But what was your mic check? How'd you do your mic check?
Did my regular voice?
Hey,
Mic check. This is my regular voice.
It's like a Pop Smoke song.
Right.
In addition to books, right, y'all also use real estate to build wealth as well. So getting back to your 7, and then 2008 happened for a lot of real estate investors. What does real estate look like on the other side, 2008, 2020, and beyond? What has been the new and improved strategy for real estate?
So if we talk about our portfolio right now, we have 2 homes in Oklahoma City and 1 in Wichita. We have gotten a little bit away from flipping houses, right? For us, it's more about you buy a home, you put a little bit of money into it to make it move-in ready, and then you rent it out, right? It's not a get rich quick scheme, but you have this portfolio of houses where you're getting a little bit of passive income every month, and then you look up and your children will be ready to kind of assume that, right? But they kind of have the ability to get out of that rat race, because they own these homes outright now.
They being your kids?
Yeah, absolutely. 15 years from now, 20 years from now. So now we are able to approach them right around the time of adulthood. And that's not 18, right? That's 22, 23. And say we have these properties, right? We have means for you to kind of go do some of the things you want to do. So it's really all about them, to be honest.
And I mean, the thing about it is time is going to pass whether we do something with it or not. 15 years is going to come. I mean, hopefully we're all still here living on this green earth together, but 15 years is going to be here. So when people are like, oh, why, it's so far away, it's going to come. And then would you rather not have anything, or would you rather have this portfolio in 15 years with some of these properties paid off? And then you have, a little bit of room to do other things at that point. If I look at it in a 15, well, we met 10 or 12. We met a long time ago, but
numbers
over there. But, if we would have started, back then we could look up now. So it's just a matter of just jumping in and starting, and time is going to pass. Just what are you going to do with that time?
Right.
Yeah.
And I love how it seems like everything y'all thinking down the line.
Intentional.
Right? I'm not going to get this Kindle ISBN. I'm going to buy my own ISBN so that I can sell it anywhere I want, have the copyrights, and pass it down. We're not going to buy and flip this home and get the quick, maybe $50,000, $100,000. No, we're going to keep this house and pass it down 15 years later. What are some other, I guess, like long-term things that you think married couples need to think about, right? When they first get married, it can be conversations that y'all already had, but when we first get married, right? We're 3 years in, right? Trying to get like y'all someday. What are some more like long-term things that y'all should really be thinking about as a young married couple?
I think people miss the value of life insurance a lot, right? So we have all of these hustles, and a lot of our investments, they do have a 15 or 20 year horizon. But, I could die tomorrow. Right? Knock on wood. But what if something happens to me, right? Before all of our stuff can come to fruition, right? And that's when life insurance comes into play, right? Because I don't want my wife to have to jump back in the workforce, right? And we've been able to create a standard of living that I want to continue in my absence, at least for 15 years, at least for 18 years, give everybody a chance to rebound. So I think insurance is a big deal. And then you have to put some money away. Right. I don't know if that's an IRA. I don't know if that's a 401k. I don't know if that's stocks. I don't, whatever it is, but put some money away because it will rain. There will be a rainy day.
Fact is, it was raining today.
It was raining today.
That's a fact.
And I feel like that's something that we're not taught growing up in our community is the power of something like a 401k and borrowing against yourself.
Ooh, give some game right now. Give some game. Give some game.
So actually, he is really good in that area.
It's just a 401k, so it's really your money at that point, and you can always, when it rains outside, you can always go borrow your own money, right? And then you can pay yourself back at 4%, 4.5% interest, right? So it's just a way to preserve that nest egg, but still have access to it when you need it.
Nice. And same thing with maybe it's a whole life insurance policy, right? And I think growing up, at least when we were young, like in college, I thought life insurance was a scam. I think a lot of people still think life insurance is a scam. People be like, trying to sell you some policies or they'll invite you to some meeting. But life insurance is real, is a strategy, and you should use it. Are y'all confirming and validating that?
Yeah, and if you can help it, you don't want to have your family on the corner. You don't want to have a GoFundMe or a bucket on the corner saying, I'm trying to bury somebody. Right. You try to handle that yourself, and you try to leave something for your family. It's not a scam at all.
There it is.
It is real. Just, knock on wood, nothing's going to happen, right? No. But I am comforted in knowing that if anything ever happens, because stuff happens in life, that the children and I will be able to move forward and function where, it's already devastating enough, right? Yeah. But it's one thing to mourn someone and then have financial hardship on top of your mourning. Right. It's I can only imagine it's a harder path and a harder road. Right. So don't want anything to happen. No. But for me, it's a comfort that, if anything ever happens, we will still be able to move forward. And that's one less burden that we'll have. And then, we'll take a legacy and build on it and move forward in that route.
Mm-hmm. I got dark humor, but in this scenario, you didn't talk about your own life insurance policy. You were like, if he's gone, we still good. I got some dark humor. My bad. But there was no, if I'm gone, they'll be okay. He was like, nah, we're not talking about that. But my grandfather, he did a great job. He served in the military. He was in the Navy. And when he passed away, he had an annuity. Mm-hmm. And he knew my grandmother very well. Yeah. Right. He was like, even before he passed, I'm not giving you a lump sum of cash. I'm not giving you this $500,000 up front, because knowing you're going to spend the money. Grandy, love you, all respect.
She's already admitted that, right?
Yeah, she's
like, that was the right decision.
It was the right decision. Instead, I'm going to give you this annuity. Yeah. So every single month, you're going to have enough money to pay for this house, pay for your bills, and have a standard living for the rest of your life. Right. So I think it's beautiful that y'all are early age, still young, still very healthy, living the best life. Right. Able to still think about, okay, but what's going to happen if something does happen. Right. So huge nugget right there. So I want to give y'all a break. I know all three of y'all have been sitting in the hot seat for some time now. Right, Trey? It's been a minute. You've been answering a lot of questions.
Half hour.
So it's been a half hour. Yeah. You got a watch on? Or you just really good at time? He looked at your watch. Right. Like, I know what time it is now. So this is our Ask Declare segment. Gives y'all a little bit of break, and you can ask us any question about health, about business, about our love journey, anything that is on your mind.
I would like to know more about the game and how you started it. I think we spoke earlier about it. I was so impressed when I went to YouTube to look at the show, and I saw that you guys had started this, before a lot of spotlight was put on. Black Wall Street. You guys have been in this and you started it. So I would love to know about your journey with the game.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll try to make this a short journey. I get excited talking about the journey. But we took our first AAS class in 2012.
African American Studies.
Thank you. African American Studies class, Ethnic Studies, Black Studies at UC Davis. And that's where I first learned about Tulsa's Black Wall Street. Right. It was just literally maybe 2 slides, like Greenwood, Black Wall Street, all black town. And then it was Detroit in 1921. But still learning that little bit of history, learning that we had a whole black town, that we had Simon Berry, who was a black pilot, and he owned a taxi service. We had O.W. Gurley, who was in real estate development and bought 40 acres and helped really make Greenwood what it was today, inspired me as a 19-year-old going into college. In 2017, I worked this camp, Village Nation Uni Camp, and my nickname at the camp was Black Wall Street. Right, so I was walking around, all the kids were like, hey, Black Wall Street. The counselors, hey, Black Wall Street. None of them knew what it meant. They were like, is that the stock market? Is that Wall Street like in New York? What does that mean? So then leaving the camp, I was like, okay, how can I teach 7-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 18-year-olds the history of Tulsa's Black Wall Street? They're probably not going to read a book. They're not like, Sammy III over here. They're probably not going to pick up a book and read it. They might not want to watch a documentary. But from my experience, people like games. Right. Families like games. So I called the queen. And what I say, queen?
He was like, I want to create a board game that's based off of the history of Black Wall Street. And I was like, that exist already. Like, this is history. I assumed like we had just learned about it and like maybe we were an anomaly or that had just learned about it. Like we're over here in California, like, you know, we grew up in predominantly white schools. So maybe we just didn't learn about it. So I'm like, somebody has had to have thought about this already. So I was like, I mean, we can look it up, but I like be open to the fact that that may already exist.
So I did a little Google search and nothing tied to Black history or Black Wall Street had been created. There have been other versions of like Black Monopoly, some of them like based on stereotypes. They'll be like drugs, gangsters, baby mama dramas, like all negative stuff in our community. Nothing based on Black excellence, young Sammy. I saw your face, right? That was my face when I was looking it up. I was like, this ain't gonna cut it. We need to make a game based on Black excellence, Black history, and the history of Black Wall Street. So not short, that was like medium. That's kind of how it came up, right? In 2017, that's where the idea was. How can we teach people how to play the game? 2018 was when we first started doing our prototypes and we did a Kickstarter, which completely flopped. It's a whole nother story. But we put our own money up in 2018, made our first editions and have been just kind of building slowly ever since 2018.
Neither one of us, but especially he was the main mastermind of the game. He didn't go to school for game design. He didn't have any training or classes in game design. So it was really just kind of testing it out, right? Your MVP was some computer paper, right? Writing your story and drawing it. Yep. Ours was a U-Haul box. We cut out a U-Haul box. He had thumbtacks. He drew out the board and we went around and he made the cards in Microsoft PowerPoint. And so we just kind of played like we pretended like we got some nice dice from a Monopoly game and
Monopoly.
And we played it and we were like, okay, this works. Like as we were going around, this works. And so we, you know, created the prototype, got some people to test it out for us. And first edition went and we were very hesitant at first because we did the Kickstarter and it just completely flopped. We had a goal of like $25,000. We made 4,000 and you know, Kickstarter, if you don't make the goal, you get none of it.
Yeah.
So that was very discouraging. But like he mentioned, we put up our own money and we sold out of the first editions within a couple months.
Wow.
And so that was like, okay, that like we got over that hump. Like people like this, people like the game because we were really like discouraged at first, like, wow, okay, maybe this isn't a good idea because the Kickstarter didn't go. Now we know that it was our marketing strategy, basically non-existent. That was the problem. But once we actually got people to see like, oh no, they actually like it. We got a Facebook group going and people were very invested in telling us like, giving us that feedback, like, here's what you could change, right? We had a family, to your point on the word in your, right, using the fight and taking that out. Something we didn't think about is we only had colors on the game. We were both blessed to have vision to where we can see colors. We had a family that was like, we don't understand what the difference between any of the things on the board. And we were like, oh, well, they're the colors of the different markets. And they're like, oh, we're actually colorblind. And we were like, never would have thought of that. Right. But that was valuable feedback that we now added like the little icons for each of the markets so that even if you can't see the color, you can still tell the difference between the different markets so that you can still play the game, right? So I think it's so important to get that valuable feedback early on so you can make those changes so you don't put out this thousands of copies and then realize that there's a whole subset of people that can't, you know, use your product or, you know, feel some type of way about it. So that's also a long-winded way.
If I could key on something you said, though, I'm a product of Oklahoma City Public Schools. And I didn't learn about what happened in Tulsa until I was a freshman in college. You know, so I just want to commend you for bringing that forward and making sure that, because a lot of the people that experienced it, that are passing it through orally, a lot of them are gone now. So if it's not in the textbook, if it's not in the game, if it's not on TV, nobody's gonna know. So I appreciate you keeping it alive. You know?
Yes, sir. Thank you. One of our mottos is remember, relearn, rebuild. Right. So that's what we're trying to do with the next generation. As unfortunately that previous generation, you know, goes on to glory. We need to make sure that we remember what they went through, remember what they did, what they experienced. We relearn some of those values, how to build businesses, how to have a trade, how to write books, how to tell stories. And then we eventually rebuild what that legacy of Tulsa Black Wall Street is. Thank you. Any other question before we turn the spotlight back on the beautiful Wallace family?
You have any questions, Sammy?
No. Well done. So another question that we have for y'all, we started talking about it a little bit, is what's next? Right. 5-year vision, because y'all are definitely visionary, bless you, intentional people. What does the next maybe 5-10 years look like for your beautiful family unit? Special, I guess, focuses on wealth or projects that you have coming up that you're open to share?
You want to go or you want me to go?
I want you to go.
So we moved to LA 6 years ago with an intent of doing the corporate dance, making a corporate name, and then coming back to Oklahoma. And we were going to do it for 5 years, but we blew by that 5 years, right? It's been over 6 now, but now we feel like it's time to come back to Oklahoma, right? So we plan to move back to Oklahoma next year. And then the real estate market here is starting to heat up. And quite honestly, we're already starting to get priced out in some areas, right? So before this becomes a Austin, Texas, before this becomes a Phoenix, we want to make sure that we can kind of lay some more inroads in the real estate game, right? So it's 2 here, 1 in Wichita, but in 5 years, we just expect to have substantially more.
And when you say we're getting pushed out, can you talk about what that means as far as pricing or signs of gentrification?
So when we left, specifically, we're talking about Northeast Oklahoma City, right? When we left Northeast Oklahoma City, we already had our eye on some properties, right? Some low-end properties, some $60,000, $70,000 properties that we can quickly rehab, put a tenant in, and let self-sustain. But now, when we go look at those houses 6 years later, like those $60,000, $70,000 houses are 200 plus.
Wow.
Touching 300, right? So there are houses in Northeast Oklahoma City now that are worth over $1 million. These brand new homes, right? So yeah, we'll be there, but we're not quite there yet, right?
I don't know. He said y'all got a lot of money.
I don't know how much.
No, it's fine, sir. But without, showing our hand too much, we do think that there are some pockets here that might be overlooked that we can still get in on and capitalize. So that's part of it, right? But now my wife is an illustrator.
Oh, come on now.
My wife is a document. She's an illustrator now, right? And when she left the rat race in 2020, the intent was for her to start helping to build this empire, right? Whether it be real estate or books or whatever it is, so that I can ultimately get out of the rat race. You know what I'm saying?
Free the king.
And then on top of that, you talk about moving back to Oklahoma. This is where family is, right? This is where the heart is, right? So we have this built-in community, this built-in network. And when you do the math, like we can actually get out of this thing sooner in Oklahoma, right? Where things are a little bit more reasonable. If you can deal with the mosquitoes and the heat and all of this stuff, it made a lot of sense for us.
Yeah, and I just want to go on record and say that sushi's better in California. We were talking off camera. Y'all saying sushi's better out here. I don't know. All right, we're gonna have to try that.
Well, again, it's because I like my sushi battered and deep fried.
Deep fry the whole thing.
Just deep fry the whole thing and give it to me. In California, they think I'm crazy. But out here, they say we sure will do that. Deep fry the whole thing.
You want to once fried or twice fried?
Yes. But to piggyback off of what he said, right now it's just it's a house, it's an investment grab in Oklahoma City. We get calls almost every day from investing companies that are asking us to buy our property. Every day we get a call from these large companies who are swooping in, and they are picking up just houses and lots and everything in East Oklahoma City, and they're not us. I'm quite sure that some that are bidding houses are us. I know a few investors that are us, but the large companies that are coming in, they're not us at all. And so we have a good feel for the East Side. We were both raised. He was raised in Oklahoma City. My mom and my grandparents, they forever had a house over there, and so we just want to make sure that we're doing our part to try to maintain some of the history of the East Side and the significance that it has for us and moving us into the homes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one thing when you go to a certain neighborhood and you see, people walking their dogs and jogging without a shirt. Yeah. And you just think,
those are the signs.
Yes.
It's here.
Yes. Yeah. It's here.
It's here.
So there was this concept of white flight, right? Where people moved out of that inner city out. So we're in the suburbs now.
Okay.
So everybody moved out here, right? But what you see in the last 10 years or so is the opposite.
Yep.
So they have these condos, they have these high rises, and everybody is going back to the area, right?
Mm-hmm.
But historically, that area, just east of that area, looked like us.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my fears is you have a homeowner who's owned a home for 40 years, right? But now you put $1 million homes in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Just from a tax perspective, they're not going to be able to sustain, you know?
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure we don't miss that boat, that we get in on some of that and hopefully afford some opportunities to people who otherwise would have to, you know, leave that area and come out.
Yeah.
And encourage us to move back in. Encourage us, you know, make it where it's affordable where we can, and speak with people and say, hey, come back to the east side, you know, because it's there. It's getting purchased up.
Oh yeah, we gotta get some more Oklahoma East Side insight from y'all.
Absolutely.
In a second, right? But I know the Queen does like our real estate kind of out of state investing. She's leading that charge. Hopefully we'll get some good news coming soon, but I appreciate all the work you've been doing in the real estate. I know it's been stressful.
It's hard doing out of state.
Right. And I was going to ask you from your perspective, as well as y'all perspective, people who don't live in Oklahoma or don't live in Illinois, maybe they're in California, they're in somewhere where it costs a little bit more to get into the real estate game. Advice that you have for them, maybe investing somewhere they don't live, right? Maybe they're in LA, but they want to invest in Oklahoma or invest in Chicago, invest in Texas. What are some tips that y'all would have?
So we used a management company at first.
Okay.
Right. But the management company wanted 8%, right?
A month, a year?
They wanted 8% of whatever your tenant was paying each month, right? Which is not a ton, but we're not talking about a big profit margin anyway, right? So we backed away from that. The good thing about Oklahoma, even though it's out of state, like I have built-in property managers, right? I can call my cousin. I can put him to work over there. I can send people over
who's
there.
him?
I can send Sammy Wallace the first.
The first,
Yeah,
the original.
on the couch, right? I can send him
generational.
in,
It's
right?
beautiful.
So it was just good to have kind of that home base. It would be a little bit difficult. Now, the one in Wichita, that's tricky, right? If you have a management company, you have to make sure that because when you have a management company, you don't always know your tenant. You didn't do the background. You might not even be able to pick that person out of a lineup, right? If something goes wrong with that property, they call the property manager. So you have to just be on your P's and Q's. If not, did that water heater really break? I don't know. I wasn't there.
I don't know. We're getting charged for it.
We're getting charged for it, right? Is that garage door really off track? I don't know. So you just have to be careful or try to develop an inside presence.
And something I was talking to a real estate agent about, I might be showing my hand, but I'm not going to do it. Something I was talking to a real estate agent about here that was a newer real estate agent is, you know, there are people that live in larger cities that would love to invest here. They need a person here.
Right.
They need it in here. They need someone who's going to send them, say, hey, this is a good property. You know, I'll show it to you. We could do a virtual tour. You could fly in. I'll help manage the rehab. They need a person there, which I think is a great business for one of us to do, which I pitched to a new real estate agent, like, hey,
you should do this.
you should. Yeah, I'm not going to. I should. I have some, my plate is full.
Yeah.
But you should do this. I have people in California all the time asking, well, I want to own property and I can't here. How do I get into owning it there?
Yeah.
And this is when we're living in LA before we decided to move back. And so I thought that would have been a great business. I thought that would have been a great business to be a connection for those living out of state that I could send them to and say, hey, this is a person who can get you started in your real estate journey in a different city. But I think it is important to have someone there. I just do. I think it's so challenging, especially if you're someone in business that likes to have a little bit more control over stuff, to kind of relinquish that control and that understanding to, you know, to someone that hasn't been for you necessarily 100% verified, you know, management company, which they were fine.
Yeah.
We really questioned a lot of the purchases because we would get to the end of the month and they're like, oh, well, we have to do a $500 repair. We have to do a $400 repair. We have to do an $800 repair. And we've had a tenant now in there for a year and we haven't had any repairs.
Smooth.
Once we got rid of the management company, we have a tenant, we haven't had not one repair. So it just leads us to think,
something's fishy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not defaming them, but I didn't say their name.
Yeah.
Right.
So things like that.
Yeah.
Where I think that when you're out of town and you have a house in a different area that you're able to trust and rely on the person who's handling it.
Yeah. I think that is important. I think that so being born and raised in California, there are a lot of people who don't even consider the notion of owning real estate because it's for some considered a pipe dream in California.
Yes,
it's for the big corporations, right? People, it's not even possible anymore. And I think that for a lot of folks, investing in out of state can be that foot in the door, so you can still get that ownership. And I think the idea of like an investment property that you're not living in, I think scares some people, and that you don't get to see every month, right? To verify those purchases can be a little bit scary. But to your point, finding a person or a company or a group of people, right? Some local people that you trust, I think is important from the get-go, from the jump. To know what areas, right? So for us, like we're investing in Chicago. What areas in Chicago should we be investing in, right? What I don't know the area, so I did do some research myself, not enough to be able to make an informed decision on if this area is a good place to buy in. So I think knowing enough to ask the right questions, right? Knowing enough to be able to go in back and forth with a broker, with whoever you're going to be talking to is important, and doing your own research is important. But I think that finding whether it's a person or a company that you really trust, that's vetted somehow, however you want to, vet, I think is important, so that you can feel comfortable making that purchase. Having, we will probably end up going with a management company because it is a little bit out of our wheelhouse, where we are doing it a little bit with our condo in LA, and it's it's work. It's work. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I think it's just being able to make an informed decision on what type of property you want to buy, what area in the neighborhood, right? You want to buy, what type of tenants you're going to acquire. What's your vetting process for the tenants, background checks, all those types of things, I think are very important to do a lot of research ahead of time, so that when that time comes, you feel comfortable, making that move.
It is. And a big difference in LA, we don't own a house. We don't. It's a no. We just don't.
It's a no. It's a no.
Coming from Oklahoma and then going there and seeing a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for $700,000 is just it's still hard for me to wrap my head around it. But then the next issue for me about investing in LA property is if we have a tenant, and in between tenants, you have to, fix it or do something, or if a tenant misses your months of payment, your mortgage is so high. And you have to pay for that out of pocket. And that, just the thought of that is just crazy to me. For us here, if we go, a couple months without a tenant, or we have to rehab something, the low mortgage is feasible.
Right.
It's obtainable to take that hit until we get someone in it. But in LA, it's just, and I have friends who own rental properties in LA, and it's tough. When you have a bad tenant, or when you're in between tenants, it's just a tough time for Los Angeles. But so that's why we choose to invest in Oklahoma, because it is difficult. And we live in LA. Yeah. And it's just, even Palmdale, we can't even go to Palmdale. We're priced out of Palmdale, we're priced out everywhere in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
One of the things, strategy wise, I would say is, I don't know about LA, but here the city planning meetings are open. So you go sit at these city planning meetings and they say, this company is surveying, 7 acres. Why? I need to look into that.
Yeah.
This company is trying to get a license. They're about to put a hotel up. I need to understand that better. There's a housing development over here. So you can kind of piggyback on what these big companies are doing and buy stuff just outside of it.
That's exactly what we did.
Exactly.
It's exactly what we did. And we've seen some beautiful equity within the last 3 years based on the Rams coming to be practicing next to us, based on a stadium coming, a baseball complex, like just all types of just stuff that isn't necessarily advertised, but it's on the website. It's public.
Right.
It's public. And the IE too, they're about to build like some $1 billion international logistics center. Right. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's time to buy in the IE.
Right. They're talking about redoing the river. Like there's a lot of things, and it's important. I think that is a great point to do, is whatever real estate market you're looking at, and look at the future plans. That is going to tell you a lot about where you should be investing. Right. So that was something that we did take a risk on, right, with our first property, but we did not do so blindly. Because I'm me, and I did a lot of, I suffer from the analysis paralysis, right? So it's good. We're a good match, because he's like, all right, go, right? You've done enough research, go. But a lot of the research that we did do is like, okay, okay, well, this is one, he grew up in the area. So it's like,
So
okay,
he
you
knows
kind
it.
of know the area a little bit. 2, I'm reading about all of this. We send each other stuff all the time. We get a lot of alerts like, oh, this is going popping up. Oh, I'm sending it to you. Oh, this, I hear the equity going up, right?
Yes.
So I think it's about being just smart about the moves that you're going to make, right? And owning in LA or owning in California, definitely not impossible, not a pipe dream. It is difficult. But I think that it makes it even more important to have a very strong vetting process, right, for those tenants, because you do not want to end up with a bad tenant in LA.
You do not.
You do not.
LA is a tenant's right.
Right.
It's tenants' rights. Like it's very, very heavily tenants' rights.
Yeah.
And if you end up with a bad tenant, it is a bad deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, the amount of equity by leaps and bounds in LA is amazing.
Right.
You know, just the amount that you could just grow that equity in such a short period of time is amazing. That's what's so great about LA real estate.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's another thing to consider before you even buy the properties. What are you buying it for, right? What are you hoping to gain from it? If it's a monthly cash flow, then LA may not be your market because you may not be able to get that cash flow for a while, right? Because the mortgages are higher. Whereas a Chicago, Oklahoma City, where you can buy for more affordable and the rent is also decent, right? And you can actually cash flow on a monthly basis. So we bought that condo knowing that we may not cash flow on a monthly basis for a while, right? But we were hoping on that equity. And that's exactly what has worked out for us. So it's all about what is the end goal with this property, right? What is your strategy for buying this property? Right. There's definitely different strategies you can go about it. So we have a very different mindset, different goal with the Chicago property than we did with our LA property. Right. So I think it's just important to evaluate and really think about what is the purpose of this property? What is the what does Jamal say? Like, what is this property paying for, basically? Well, of course, that we took the Make Real Estate Real, shout out to Jamal King. But he's like, have a purpose for every property, right? Sure. So this one's going to cover my car note. All right. This one's going to cover tuition for my kid. This one's going to cover whatever it is, my mortgage, right? So that you have a purpose for each property you buy, whether that's going to be, getting that equity out, cashing out, or whether it's going to be a cash flow, whatever it is, have a purpose in mind before you buy it.
100%. So I know it's almost pizza time. Or food time, lunchtime.
Whatever they
right?
serve at Del Rancho. What do they serve there? Hot dogs.
Okay, it's almost hot dog time. So got 2 questions for you. First question for you, Trey, is do you want to own a home one day?
Yes.
Yes? Why? And make sure you tell the mic why you want to own a home one day.
I don't really know yet.
Don't know yet, but you want a home and you want 2 butlers.
Yes.
What do you want those 2 butlers to do?
What? Well, my butlers are gonna do anything.
They're not gonna do anything? They're not gonna cook? They're not gonna
They're
clean?
gonna do anything.
Oh, anything. Okay.
Oh.
Well, one's gonna do my job mostly, and the other's gonna probably help the rest of my family.
Just your family.
They're going to be fly, huh? Looking nice.
And some to shop, some to food, some to do other stuff.
Okay. And when you
clean rooms.
in clean rooms. Okay. And when you think about your family, what do you see? If you were going to draw a picture of what your future family look like, what does that look like? What car are you driving? The house?
When I think of butlers and a fancy house, I think of a mansion. My son has an Afro. Afro gold tooth.
A gold tooth and an iPhone?
Yeah.
Okay.
iPhone Max.
iPhone Max. Okay. And is your son going to be Sammy Wallace IV?
Dejan.
Okay, there it is. Thank you very much for the vision.
I love it. I can see it.
Right. And then on y'all side, last question, just one again key piece of takeaway advice that y'all have for melanated married millionaires in the making. People who are watching this, maybe they're already married, they already found their loved one over a bottle of sake or a few bottles. Maybe they're single, looking for that person. What would be that last bit of advice that you would give those folks?
You want to go first?
Nope.
So you said something that kind of resonated with me. I think the same way. And it's always start with the end in mind. So let's figure out what we're trying to do, and then we can back into that.
Yeah.
And then I always say, it's kind of cliche, but you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So let's just write it down. Let's be strategic and intentional about stuff. And you can literally do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, just don't be scared. Jump off the porch.
Don't be scared.
So my piece of advice is just to be in it together. You know, when you're moving forward, to move forward together. And I think sometimes that might be complicated when you're not aligned, you know, together. But when you are aligned together, the magic, right? The magic that can be made is something that's beyond something I even imagined, you know, earlier. But when you're aligned with the right person moving forward, just seems seamless. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of hard work and late nights, but it just seems seamless and purposeful and important at that point.
Love it.
And the other thing I would say is be strategic about your build versus buy decisions, because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we feel like we have to do every single thing. And sometimes it makes sense. So when we did his trailer, his YouTube trailer for his book, it made sense for us to spend a little bit of money and just pay a professional to voice over it, right? Instead of me trying to, do it myself. You spend a quick $50 or however much and you move on.
Yeah.
So figure out what you're willing to do yourself and what you're willing to pay somebody to do.
Nice. Yep.
Keep moving.
Pay the professionals. That's a lesson I had to learn. Because this podcast used to be 100% us on Zoom. I would do all types of different camera angles. It didn't look good. I thought it looked good. I was doing the edit. It didn't look good.
Right.
So we had to get the professional in here, get Jair in here, multiple cameras. He's way better at editing, adding the music. So yeah, 100%. Yeah. Take it off. Right. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Feelings
Thank
mutual.
you.
Thank you. And it was a good vibe. Hopefully we can get more episodes like this, whether it's y'all or other folks, but loving being able to, the homie feel is really good. The multi-generational feel is literally amazing. And hopefully this isn't weird, but looking and feeling the future for us, like just the way that y'all talk to your kids, the way that they engage with themselves, whether they're writing books, it just makes us, I think, more excited for kids, more excited for our future as well. So I appreciate that gift that y'all gave to us. Queen, outro for us, please.
Well, thank you all for joining us for the Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making show. We appreciate you joining our first live interview, making history. You're making history. You already made history, I'm sure, but you're making even more history today by being on this show with us. So we appreciate you. We appreciate y'all. Boom. Boom. So thank y'all. Hopefully we're going to have way more melanated married millionaires in the making couples on this show in the future. So yeah, stay tapped in. We hope you stay. What is our new outro?
We hope you secure the love, secure the marriage, and of course, secure the bag. Peace, y'all. Thank you for supporting the M4 show and our mission to increase the wealth of Black families.
If you received any value from this episode, any value at all, any, do us a favor and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, anything, all of them, all of them, wherever you're listening, go ahead and like and subscribe.
And after you like and subscribe, make sure you send this episode to at least one family that you really want to see win. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.